الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. Respected brothers and sisters, a brief message. There are two things that are undeniable in our lives, two things that motivate us to do the things that we do. We do things either because they fall into one of two categories. They either fall into a category known as our objectives. We set things as an objective, and then because we set them as objectives, we are motivated to fulfill those objectives, to do them, right? And objectives for people tend to be important, things that they target and aim for and go after. And they consider them to have some sort of significant impact in their lives. Either because they think it's important or because it is, objectively speaking, important, right? So people set their objectives in life in many different ways, all right? An obvious one for many people is money, job, career. Often objectives are set in terms of money, job, and career. The second thing that motivates all of us to do things, and this one actually forces us to do things, is necessities of life, right? And sometimes the two overlap. Our necessities make us do things regardless of whether we want to do them, whether we enjoy them, right? Or whether in our overall view of our life, we think they're even important. But because they're necessary, we have to do them. Whether you want to have lunch or not, you have to have it because your body needs it. Whether you like sleeping or not, you're going to sleep because it's a necessity of life. Whether you enjoy going to the toilet or not, you're going to do it because it is a necessity of life. And for some people, a job, maybe if it's a mundane job that isn't part of a career, is still done because it is a necessity of life, and so on and so forth. Things are framed, most things in life either fall into one of these two categories. And sometimes things move. Sometimes something that is a necessity for one person is an objective for another, right? And so forth. How do we conceive of these things? How do we understand this as Muslims, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us our purpose in life is to worship Him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And He tells the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to say that indeed my prayer, my sacrifice, my life and my death are purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds. But how does just knowing that or saying that or understanding that trickle down and filter into the necessities of our life and the objectives of our life? For each one of us, will properly thinking through what it means to have ibadah as our purpose in life, or to have our life and our death for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will it do if we truly reflect on it? What things will it take out of the category of objectives in life and into the category of necessities of life, right? And how will it make us configure things? For most people, unless they're involved in haram, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us from that, right? Unless they're involved in haram, for most people, reflecting on their lives in terms of what are their objectives and what are their necessities, with their purpose above that of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the purpose of doing things purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For many people, it is simply a reconfiguring of how they think of things. A person has a career as a doctor, as an engineer, as a civil servant, as a teacher, what have you, right? Often, thinking about what is my objective in life does not necessitate that they give up that job, do something simpler and spend their time in the masjid. but it will require them to think again and again and again critically about why they do the job that they do. What else can they get out of it? And how can it serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and conform to the idea of life, death, salah, sacrifice being for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I ask any Muslim, any good Muslim who comes to Jumu'ah, right, what is your purpose in life? Their answer, for the most part, will be the same, right? Most of us will say to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do what pleases Allah, to attain Jannah, to attain salvation. There will be these answers. But at the same time, not many will be able to relate that statement and trickle it down to the individual things that they do in their lives, especially the important ones, especially the things that take up the majority of their time. How do you relate it to the third of your life that you sleep through, right? And how do you relate it to the bigger chunk of your life that you spend earning a livelihood? How does a woman relate it to the massive chunk of her life that she spends bringing up her children? How does she align? And that is the main word that I want everyone to focus on. How do we make every single aspect of our lives align to our purpose and our objectives, right? And that is a simple, it's not just food for thought, but I often tell people that this is an exercise. It is an exercise that we have to go through with pen and paper in hand and think about how we can align every aspect of our life with our objectives. It doesn't mean that we spend the rest of our lives in a masjid we give up our careers, we give up our businesses. It usually means an alignment in our minds. And suddenly, everything gets encompassed within a broad definition of ibadah. So everything is ibadah because everything now, just because we have aligned it in our minds, is purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the barakah in this is immense. So I'm going to begin, inshallah. There will be lots and lots of topics that will be discussed. I want to begin just with this, with a call to everyone to engage in an exercise of realignment. All right, and if you try it properly, you will find that lots and lots of things in life won't make sense. They won't fit in. There'll be necessities that we've turned into objectives. That will be usually the major mistake. All right, and there will be objectives that that really aren't objectives at all, or shouldn't be objectives. And there will be things that we will be doing, and it has never occurred to us how this relates to my purpose in life of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then if we can relate it, then all of a sudden the productivity of us as a community of individual Muslims goes up. Because now when they do their job as a doctor, they're not motivated by their salary and by their line manager, but they are motivated by ikhlas. The engineer is motivated by ikhlas. The teacher is motivated by ikhlas and by accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not accountability to the department head. All right? The whole dynamic changes if we just engage in an exercise of alignment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to do this, inshallah. And I'll touch on this more, inshallah, when I lead and provide more details, inshallah, over the coming weeks and months. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.